Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another edition of the broadcast. I'm your host, Josh Reeves. This is the Tuesday, June 25th, 2019 edition of the broadcast. I'm here with you again for another show. Thanks so much for being here again for another week of shows. Yeah, quite a bit of different news stories and different crazy shit running the gamut, as I always do for you each and every show. So we're going to be getting into all that for you here on the show today, and all kinds of wild stuff. So can't wait to get into it all with you here on the broadcast. Where to start? I don't know. I got a lot here, so I'm going to jump into it, do my best to get into all of it for you here on the show. This week, of course, is our fundraising week. We have until Monday to raise 100% of our operating cost goal. This is the most crucial month for us because as I'm approaching a final end to my work on the Spellcasters Volume 2, well, as I told you months ago, I'd broken up, my original plan of doing 2 has actually been broken up into 2 and 3 now, because there's no way I can put out like a 6 or 8 hour movie. So, my immediate goal has just been, and then I actually made the decision I'm going to break part 2 up into 2 parts just so I can get one of the parts out first. Like I said before, the biggest problem I'm having is just doing this on a computer that's almost 10 years old. And, that's really what's been slowing my efforts and everything out. Because the biggest thing it takes the most time is when you're doing like graphics and stuff like that within the film. That just bogs it down forever. And I've had to do a million different rewrites and you find new stuff, and then other stuff you had in there before becomes irrelevant and you have to redo it. And that's happened more times during the process of making this movie than anything else. On top of, all the other problems. I had health problems and on and on and on. So I did a lot of work over the weekend and into yesterday, and there wasn't really a lot to cover or talk about yesterday. So I was like, I'm just going to fucking keep working on this. But last month, we did a thing on fundraising week, and we had some people participate. So I want to do that again this week because it was pretty fun, and we got some good submissions last time. So everybody that contributes $100 or more this week to our fundraising efforts, on top whatever the perks are and all that, you'll also be able to submit, if you contribute $100 or more, doesn't matter, any amount of that, you'll also be able to submit a question, a topic, or whatever else to me at globalrealityshow@gmail.com, and I will answer your question, get into the topic and all that for you here on the show throughout the week. It was fun doing that last month, and we got some really good ones. So I thought we'd try and do that again this week and see what everybody submitted, because it does seem to make it, I think, more interesting when we get more stuff. We get stuff in from listeners and whatnot, because I always don't often know. It's just a shot in the dark for me. Luckily, a lot of what I talk about you guys are into anyway, so that's fine. That's good. But it is always interesting when you guys submit stuff and then we see what the listeners want to hear me talk about, and then I can get into that. If you got to understand though, not every topic is going to be something probably that I'm going to know anything about, but I know a great deal about every topic, so it'd be fun to get into that this week. So we'll be doing that again. And I'll try to have some kind of gem and mineral prize or something too this week as well. The problem is this is, like I said, this is our most crucial time. Because last couple months we had, I just don't have any grace time this week. We've got to have 100% of our operating costs by Monday, not by Tuesday, not by Wednesday. We've got less than a week, about 6 days now. And we've just got to have everybody contributing everything they can. And we really need a couple of people to come in at larger amounts too this week. So if there's anybody out there that has the ability to come in at larger amounts this week, we need you to do so. And everything else is suggested as well. I got a birthday coming up next week, and honestly, the only thing I want for my birthday is just for us to be able to continue our work, and for us to reach, and for that to happen, we've got to reach 100% of our operating costs goal. Again, why it's so crucial is because what always seems to happen is that I have to spend more time fundraising and trying to raise the money to cover the operating costs when I could be spending that time trying to get the film finished. And I'm really trying to do that, to get that out, at least one part of it, if not the entire thing of part 2, because then I'm going to be working on getting part 3 out right after that. But it's been a little slow this month for contributions. And, we got to have at least $200 in here before Thursday, minimum. But we've got to have 100% of our operating costs goal by Monday. So again, the time is now. This is your time to act. We need soldiers for truth to stand up and help me get this done, because this film's been delayed so long. I finally made a lot of headway, and have finally got a majority of this stuff rewritten, redone, re-edited. A lot of because my goal is, what I want to do is I want to try to get enough, besides just the because listen, when we barely scrape by every month and we only get enough in to cover the operating costs, and there's nothing left to do anything else. There's nothing left for any sort of, any advertising, no promotion for the films once they come out. And I really want to get enough in, because they just released some new IMAX that are really good and have really good specs, but they're not as overly priced as like the Pro models. So they've got a few out now that are like $2,000 that if I could get enough sales when I get Volume 2 out, I could get one of these new IMAX they have out, and then that would allow me to get part 3 of Spellcasters out in about half the time it would take me, because I wouldn't have to be sitting around waiting for stuff to process and stuff like that. So that's my goal right now, and I like to keep you guys apprised of what our goals are here. So if you can contribute and you can help, then you can do so, and you know what we're trying to do. So that's the main goal right now. The main goal right now is get the operating costs covered. The earlier we can get those covered, my point is, if we can get as much in as we can this week, so we don't get down to Sunday and we're sitting here going, okay, we've got all this due tomorrow, and yet we've got a long way to go in a short time to get there. If we can get as many people to contribute now and get as much as we can of this up front before Monday, that will allow me the cushion to be able to go, whew, okay, I don't have to worry about that. I can focus all of my energy 100% on working on this film and get this out. My goal is to have this out somewhere around no later than 4th of July. Really, it's kind of right around my birthday time. I'm kind of shooting for that. But again, we've got to have the operating costs on Monday the 1st before all of that. So if we get the operating costs covered, then I can, it'll be a fucking 1,000,000-ton weight off my shoulder, and I can do nothing but concentrate on getting this film done, get the goal achieved, get part 2 out, or at least half of part 2 out, get some sales in from that, get a new iMac in here, and then I can get Volume 3 out in like 2 weeks. Because, or it may even be sooner than that. I'm telling you, with with what I've been dealing with this old ass computer, having a new one would enable me to do everything literally twice as fast. So that's the goal. I need all of your help to achieve that. And anybody out there, especially people who can come, any amount's going to help. If we get 15 people that come in at 100, and then other people comes in at another amount, whatever combination, we can get this done. But this is really an all hands on deck situation for this week, because I'm now closer than I have been, and I don't have to do any more. All the rewrites. See, that's what's held this thing back, besides my health problems that I was having and all the other stuff. The big thing is now is that all the rewrites that I had to do are done. All the stuff, the re-editing, that was a fucking pain. So I had to go back and move stuff around because some of the stuff that I was going to have in Volume 2 now is going to be in Volume 3, and some of the stuff was going to be in Volume 3 is now going to be in Volume 2. So I had to re-edit, rearrange. It's tough, man. It's really tough when you're dealing with something like that. I mean, this is, like I said, there's so much fucking information to this, way more than I ever counted on. I've come in more information, more research during the making of this than I ever even knew was there before I started it. So, you know, I don't even know. I'm just going to do, like I said, I'm not going to put a cap on this thing. I'm just going to make all the parts I need to make until all the information that I have my hands on is in there and out to you. You know, I don't really know what else to do. I mean, what am I going to do? Just not fucking put things in there that I found because, you know, I don't want to have to do that much work, or I don't want to have that many parts. Fuck that. You know what I mean? Fuck it. I mean, I went all in a long time ago. Might as well fucking go all the way in. You know, why leave anything out? Why not have anything in there? Let's make it definitive. So, I mean, if it takes 4 or 5 parts, it takes 4 or 5 parts, man. But my initial goal right now is to just get out what I can get out in the next week and a half. And again, that's why it's so important right now this month, more than it ever has been, that we get everybody support and we get everybody to chip in and throw in so we can reach our operating cost goals, so I can focus on getting this done, because I'm close and I'm fucking stoked, man. God damn. Huh. Oh, I can't even, it's hard for me to fucking contain how excited I am, because it's been setback after setback, and I've had to do so much. I'd get almost the film all the way done and then have to basically start all over again. And I've had to do that like 4 times. And I know it's frustrating. Believe me, if you're frustrated, imagine how frustrated I am having to do all this fucking work as one person. You know, one person doing the researching, the editing, the writing, the voiceovers, the effects. I write and perform all the music. I mean, every aspect and element of these films I do all by myself. And if you've never done that before, you don't really know how stressful it is, especially to do it with literally, I mean, I'm not even doing these, this isn't even done on a shoestring. This is done on a no budget. This is done on like pennies, man, whatever I can scrape up. And if you were to pay somebody to do the amount of work I'd put into this, it'd be hundreds of thousands of dollars. So, when you look at how much we've got on our operating cost goal this week versus how much effort has gone into this work, it's a penance. So we just need everybody to step up and throw in what you can this week. And again, my birthday's coming up next week. I don't want anything else to be able to continue, because I'm so close now, and we just don't have any, I don't have any grace period time like we had in previous months. I got to have everything we need by the end of the day on Monday without fail. So there you go. And again, everybody contributes $100 or more. You can also send in questions, comments, something you want to hear me address, talk about on air, and I will do that for you. Let's get into the news. It's from Live Science. AI listened to people's voices and generated their faces. This is pretty interesting. Looking at the pictures here of this, you can look this up for yourself. The pictures aren't 100% accurate, but they're pretty damn close in some situations. Just the fact that it's already this good, and we know a lot of this stuff has been this good for a long time, in secret 10, 20 years or more. But what's it going to be like in another 10, 20 years? Have you ever constructed a mental image of a person you've never seen based solely on their voice? Yeah, I have. And honestly, most of the time, it's very rarely accurate. You know what I mean? Like, what's that one guy? That one fucking shill, poodle head fucking dude. Fucking Jeff Rentz. I mean, because there's not any, like, you don't put up pictures of himself. There's just like drawings and shit of him, which is hilarious. When I first heard that guy's voice, I didn't think he sounded like that. I'm sure there's lots of people that just do the same thing with me. They hear my voice and go, oh, that dude looks like that? Fuck, it's not what I expected. But artificial intelligence can now do that, generating a digital image of a person's face using only a brief audio clip for reference. Named Speech-to-Face. Oh, wow, that's a real original name there. The neural network, a computer that thinks in a manner similar to the human brain, was trained by scientists on millions of educational videos from the internet and showed over 100,000 different people talking. From this data set, Speech-to-Face has learned associations between vocal cues and certain physical... Oh, what are you doing? God, these news stories gotten so bad. Shit just pops up while you're in the middle of reading something. From this data set, Speech-to-Face learned associations between vocal cues and certain physical features in a human face. Researchers wrote in a new study, the AI then used audio clips to model photorealistic face matching to the voice. The findings were published online on May 23rd in the preprint journal ARXIV and have not been peer-reviewed. Thankfully, AI yet doesn't know exactly what a specific individual looks like based on their voice alone. The neural network recognized certain markers in speech that pointed to gender, age, and ethnicity, features that are shared by many people, the study's authors reported. As such, the model will only produce average-looking faces. It will not produce images of specific individuals. AI has already shown that it can produce uncannily accurate human faces, though its interpretations of cats are frankly a little terrifying. The faces generated by Speech-to-Face, all facing front with neutral expressions, didn't precisely match the people behind the voices, but the images did usually capture the correct age ranges, ethnicities, and genders of the individuals according to the studies. However, the algorithm's interpretations were far from perfect. Speech-to-Face demonstrated mixed performance when confronted with language variations. For example, when the AI listened to an audio clip of an Asian man speaking Chinese, the program produced an image of an Asian face. However, when the same man spoke in English in a different audio clip, the AI generated the face of a white man. Oh, so it's racist. Nice. A racist AI. Ain't that some shit? That's going to be something, isn't it? They're going to... I mean, even the fucking AI is biased. Well, he spoke English, so, I just assumed he was white. Wrong. That's hilarious. You got these fucking lefty liberal Silicon Valley people who are all against, hate speech and everything else. And they turn on their AI program, and their AI program thinks an Asian is a white. Do you know these motherfuckers like, oh, shit. We need to reprogram this. Oh, man, I would have loved to have been a fucking fly on the wall for that, huh? Oh, man, that's hilarious. Some big black bubba goes on there and fucking it talks into it, then it draws him out to be a white guy. I think we fucked up here, boss. Man, that is hilarious. That is hilarious. You guys thought you were being so smart. Oh, AI is going to change the game. It's going to do away with stereotypes and racism. Wrong. Wrong. God, that's funny. Oh, man, talk about funny. How many times have we seen this? How many times have we covered this on the show? A shit ton. I remember even back when Obama first got elected, they were running these stories. They're running them again now. It always makes me laugh. Especially when the picture that goes along with it. But it's every other week now. They keep talking about geoengineering and running these stories about geoengineering and chemtrails and weather modification like this shit hadn't been going on for years. And they even oftentimes, as is the case with this story, show in the picture of the story, planes spraying chemtrails. A rogue country could take planet hacking into its own hands and alter the climate, and some experts worry it could lead to war. Well, wrong, buddy. Weather wars and all that shit and geoengineering has been going on for decades. Decades, man. You can go back and look at old TV shows, old books, old magazines, old movies from 40, 50 plus years ago. And there's shit in there. You guys ever see that movie? What was the name of that movie? It was one of Clint Eastwood's. I think it was the first movie he ever directed, where he plays like a radio host that gets stalked by this craze fan. Now I can relate to that. But play Misty for me. That's what it's called. At the very beginning of that movie, you can see chemtrails. At the very beginning of that movie came out in like 1971 or something. Earth's temperatures are on track to blow past the objective set in the Paris Climate Agreement last year. Last year was the fourth warmest on record for surface temperatures and the hottest ever for oceans. A recent report from the United Nations Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change found that nations around the globe must implement rapid and far-reaching changes in energy sources, infrastructure, industry, and transportation to avoid catastrophic consequences of climate change. Which, of course, as we talked about many times, just equates to natural cycles of the sun that they're now trying to use to get carbon taxes and everything else in order to get us to pay for their attempts to either go underground or get off a planet. But that's what all this stuff's for. Don't let anybody kid you that it's for anything else. Yes, climate change is real. Yes, climate change has happened on this planet many times. But it's always the result of these natural cycles of the sun that cause, in some cases, mass extinction events on the planet. Some researchers are looking into other ways to address dangerous warming, hacking the climate. The technical term for this is geoengineering, and the technology generally involves either capturing carbon dioxide from the air and storing it and manipulating the atmosphere to help cool the earth. Blah, blah, blah. Again, they've been doing this forever, and yet they keep bringing it up again and again like it's a new idea. And I just think it's hilarious that they show these chemtrail spray planes in the fucking articles when they talk about it. I mean, it's ridiculous. And despite what Joe Rogan and these other shills say, it's absolutely real. It's been going on forever, and it's not a conspiracy theory. Speaking of shills, Pope backs carbon pricing to stem global warming and appeals to deniers. Oh, this is hilarious. So now the fucking demon Pope is asking people saying we need carbon tax now. This is hilarious. Well, you know it's bullshit when the Pope starts asking for it. That's all I can say about that. Pope Francis said on Friday that carbon pricing is essential to stem global warming. His clearest statement yet in support of penalizing polluters, and appealed to climate change deniers to listen to science. Listen, see, there's two different things here. I'm not a climate change denier. I agree 100% that it's happening and has happened. You can look at the science. You want to talk science, look at the science on that. They've proven beyond any shadow of a doubt that the climate has changed dramatically on the planet through the years, long before there were automobiles, long before there was a human population like there is now. And that's what's being covered. That's what's been covered up from us. But again, they just like they always do, just like they want us to pay for their wars with taxes and everything else. They want the slaves to pay for their wars. They want us to pay for our own destruction. They want us to pay for us all to die on the surface while they either go underground or off planet. And that's what needs to be exposed more than anything else. I was a couple of things last week I just forgot to cover. Either I forgot or just didn't give a fuck. I don't know which one it is. I didn't cover all the Alex Jones shit last week because obviously, I mean, who gives a shit? We all know what that is. I don't need to beat that fucking dead horse anymore. But obviously, you guys heard about all the child porn shit that he was saying. I mean, he changed the story about 6 different times on that. I mean, something's fishy with that. First, he said somebody hacked his servers and put child porn on his servers. Then they said it was malware. Then they said it was attached to emails that came into a server. Well, which one is it? That's 3 different distinct things. It can't be all 3 of those. But, yeah, it seems now that he also had to pay $15,000 to the creator of Pepe the Frog for using that. I also forgot to cover this. We had a weird thing happen last week here in Dallas last Monday where we had an active shooter here at the federal building in Dallas. And it was so strange because the whole thing was just weird. Because number one, the guy, he was only 22 years old. He was, of course, as per usual, former military, which means he probably had his fucking brains cooked in some kind of MK Ultra scrambled egg competition. But the whole thing just didn't make, I don't know, something about the whole thing didn't make sense to me. This guy was armed for bear, man. I mean, and he didn't kill anybody. He didn't shoot anybody. Doesn't make any sense. The thing I've deducted from this is that this was suicide by cop. Because if this guy really wanted to kill anybody and he's former military, he could have done way better than this. I think this guy just wanted to die, judging by looking at his Facebook. And of course, as soon as I heard about this, I was like, man, I bet you $1 to donuts this fucking guy was a Jonesy fan. I went and looked at his Facebook. It took me about 2 minutes to find Alex Jones shit on this guy's page. What's interesting is where it happened at. It happened at the Earl Cabell Federal Building, which is like where they have federal court cases. And supposedly, what's interesting is supposedly that's where, like, because we have the FBI building. Now, this is different. The FBI building's right down in Dealey Plaza. Well, this is the federal building. We have, like, the federal court cases and stuff. I've heard that that's the building also that the CIA operates out of in Dallas. And even made more interesting by who the building is named after, Earl Cabell. If you don't know who Earl Cabell is, he was the mayor of Dallas at the time of the Kennedy assassination. And it's since come out through declassified documents through the years since then that Earl Cabell, whose brother was the second in command of the CIA, Charles Cabell, who Kennedy, by the way, fired along with Allen Dulles. It's now since come out that as from 1956 on, Earl Cabell, who this federal building where the shooting took place was named after, was himself a CIA asset. Here's the first major revelation from the historic release of previously withheld government records on the JFK assassination. The mayor of Dallas, when President John F. Kennedy was killed in that city, was a CIA asset. We were alerted to this salient fact by retired military intelligence officer and author John Newman, who was considering a thorough analysis of the long secret documents. At the time of the assassination, Dallas Mayor Earl Cabell, brother of one-time deputy director of Central Intelligence Charles P. Cabell, had been a CIA asset since 1956. It's worth noting that Kennedy dismissed CIA Director Allen Dulles in November 1961, and that Earl Cabell's brother Charles left the CIA on January 31st, 1962, after Kennedy forced him to resign. Thus, both Dulles and Charles Cabell were no longer working for the CIA on November 22nd, 1963, when Kennedy was killed. Earl Cabell, who had been elected mayor of Dallas in May 1961, oversaw arrangements for Kennedy's trip and motorcade, which took him through Dealey Plaza, a route that violated almost all standard rules for presidential safety and where normal safeguards such as sealing windows and placing sharpshooters were ignored. This is of interest to researchers into the assassination who have been collecting evidence of CIA ties to a host of individuals who figure in the events. So, yeah. That was always the big question. Who had the ability to change the parade routes and all that stuff? Well, now we know, obviously, the mayor. So it's interesting they named that federal building after him. My dad used to tell me about that building. My dad used to be, he was a courier, deliverer. And he told me one time we were driving by there and he told me, he's like, man, there's some serious fucking people that work in that place. I was like, oh yeah. He's like, yeah. He's like, he had to get like a background check just to be able to go in there and deliver packages. And one time he was in a hurry and we went in to deliver a package there and he has a little piece on him, like a little 25 caliber pop gun. He just forgot he had it on him. And he went through the metal detector, it went off, and they found it, and they fucking freaked the fuck out on him. This is like after 9/11 too. So I always thought about that. But, I mean, it just didn't make sense to me. The guy didn't shoot anybody. He could have waited until it opened and people were going in for work. He could have waited until the end of the day. I mean, he had, I don't know how many there's pictures of him. He had so many magazines on him, but yet he didn't shoot anybody, and he was killed almost instantly. So I think this is just probably a case of suicide by cop, but it's always interesting how many more of these shooters now will at least turn out to be Alex Jones fans. I'm sure that's just a coincidence. What else? Father of Sandy Hook victim wins defamation suit against massacre deniers. Leonard Posner, father of the Sandy Hook massacre's youngest victim, has won a defamation lawsuit against the editors of a book that claims the 2012 shooting in Newtown, Connecticut never occurred. Wisconsin's Dane County Circuit Judge Frank Remington issued a summary judgment on Monday against James Fetzer and Mike Palechek, co-editors of Nobody Died at Sandy Hook. The 400-page book falsely claims that the shooting, which resulted in 27 deaths at the school, including 20 children, was a FEMA drill promoting gun control, that Posner fabricated the death certificate of his 6-year-old son, Noah. Fabricating death certificates is a crime in the state of Connecticut. The suit focused on the death certificate claim, but also references theories Fetzer put forward on his blog, including the idea that Noah was not Posner's son. A redacted copy of the death certificate was included with the lawsuit, and Posner even requested the court appoint. Now, why would they redact a death certificate? That's kind of shady. To conduct a post-mortem paternity test proving his relation to Noah. If Mr. Fetzer wants to believe that Sandy Hook never happened, and that we are all crisis actors, even that my son never existed, he has the right to be wrong. But he doesn't have the right to broadcast those beliefs if they defame me or harass me. He doesn't have the right to use my baby's image or our name as a marketing ploy to raise donations to sell his products. You know, I again, this was one of those topics that I never jumped on or talked about. Certain things I could just smell them, I could just smell them a mile away. Especially when I saw people who were pushing it. But Jim Fetzer, I knew that guy was disinfo even back when I was doing 9/11 Truth stuff in like 2006, 2007. Because one of the guys I used to be in a 9/11 Truth group with told me about this conference call he was on where Fetzer and Judy Wood were basically like bullying anybody who wouldn't get on board with their idea that particle beam weapons were used, space beams were used on the towers and all this stuff. They were basically like conspiring together to bully anybody that didn't get on board with the theories. And he heard this on a conference call, them saying, yeah, we're going to get this motherfucker. Basically they were going to blackmail. If he doesn't get on board with us and support our space beam theory, then we're going to make sure that he doesn't get on the talk shows and make sure that, people don't support him and all this stuff. So none of that kind of shit surprised me when it comes to Fetzer. I've known that guy was a fucking shit chill from day one. Well, this is interesting because I talked about this when it first happened. Remember, I talked about the death of comedian Brody Stevens. I talked about something didn't seem right about it. Because before we had any information, before anybody knew anything about it, Joe Rogan was the first one that was like, oh, he went off his meds. That's why he did. Like, instantly came to that conclusion before anybody knew anything. And it was like, well, where's he getting his info at? Something stuck. But now, it seems that finally, it's like people find it. It's funny how many times I'll say something. It'll take people months to catch up. It seems now that others are finally starting to ask questions and become suspicious of this too. And like I've said, man, follow the trail. Look how many, a lot of these guys got a lot of corpses that follow them around, man. A lot of people that I'm exposing in the Spellcaster stuff, they got a lot of corpses. A lot of people in their orbit that have died. Joe Rogan's got a bunch. He's had a bunch of them. I've talked about the stuff with him and Phil Hartman before and others. And, stuff like I'm covering in the film, the Courtney Love stuff, a lot of corpses around her. Sharon Osbourne, a lot of corpses around her. I mean, it's, people say follow the money. I say follow the corpses. The sad final days of a very funny man inside comedian Brody Stevens' tragic death. For A-listers like Zach Galifianakis and Sarah Silverman, Stevens wasn't just a friend, he was a comic savant. One of the few acts they would drop everything to watch, leaving them to wonder why did he take his own life just as his career was heating up. Yeah, that's the other thing too. I understand that these guys kill themselves on the way down or, they kill themselves because they've been slogging it out for fucking 20 years, still got nowhere. But it's always interesting when these guys axe themselves right as they're beginning to hit the fucking pinnacle. And that just doesn't make any sense. Howard Kremer hadn't heard from his friend and fellow comedian Brody Stevens for a couple of days. They performed at the Pleasure Chest, a West Hollywood sex shop that hosts a monthly gig called Performance Anxiety on Tuesdays. Now it was Friday, February 22nd, and still no word. A flicker of concern began to tug at him. Stevens had been diagnosed with bipolar disorder in 2010 and only recently resumed a regimen of powerful antipsychotic medications after a few months without them. On the face of it, Stevens seemed to be doing better than ever. He had been opening for David Spade on tour for a couple of years and had recently nabbed one of the most prestigious spots in the LA comedy scene, the last slot of the night at the Comedy Store, known as the Sam Kinison spot. Yeah, I talked about that. Yeah, that's interesting. Look at how many people who did that slot at the Comedy Store who are now dead. And, Joe Rogan's like big shits in Turdville at the Comedy Store after he got banned there for a long time. Now Mitzi Shore is gone. And Rogan thinks he runs that place. I just think the timing of that with Brody Stevens' death is a little suspect. After 4 or more hours of drinking and being yelled at by the night's performers, crowds were already exhausted, drunk, or often both. Stevens would leap on stage, an infectious, forceful presence. He was one of only a handful of comedians who could nail it. He could just destroy, says friend and fellow comedian Tony Hinchcliffe. It's not a spot that everyone wants because it's hard. It was built for a guy like him. Still, Kramer was worried. He knew the readjustment period to the powerful medications his friend was on could be treacherous. He decided to stop by Stevens' apartment in the San Fernando Valley, a one-bedroom whose walls were plastered with laminated images of the comic with celebrities and sports figures he had appeared alongside, including A-Rod, The Rock, and his friend Zach Galifianakis, who helped him score the role of a hectoring police officer in The Hangover. When Kramer arrived at the apartment that morning, Stevens' car was in the parking lot space, but he still wasn't answering his phone. No one answered when Kramer knocked. He tried unsuccessfully to get in through a window. Eventually, a neighbor called the building superintendent, who waited with Kramer until the police showed up. They found Stevens, 48, in his bedroom, crumpled on the floor. He had hanged himself. News of the suicide spread quickly through the professional comedy world. 5,000 miles away in London, Hinchcliffe was wrapping up the fifth night of a solo run at the Soho Theatre. He usually kept his cell phone on airplane mode during shows, but tonight, for some reason, he'd left it on, and now it rang. Still on stage, he put Matt Edgar on speaker. "Why do you sound like one of our friends just died?" Hinchcliffe deadpanned. "Because he did," Edgar replied. Hinchcliffe faltered, certain Edgar was pranking him. When he took the phone off speaker, Edgar's voice cracked. "Brody's dead." Hinchcliffe turned to the audience and mumbled, "I think I have to go." He walked off stage and collapsed in tears. Stevens may be most widely known as a regular audience warm-up comic for shows like The Best Damn Sports Show, period, Chris Hardwick's At Midnight, and Chelsea Handler's E-Show, Chelsea Lately, but among professional comedians, he was a legend. Revered for both his rebellious originality on stage and his kindness off it. Dozens of comedians, from Tom Arnold to Patton Oswalt, took to Twitter to lament his passing. "If you are depressed or feeling suicidal, please, please, please reach out to anyone," Oswalt tweeted. "Yeah, well, I told you about Patton Oswalt. I don't trust that motherfucker either. Something's up with that guy. I don't trust the fucking death of his wife. Something's up with that." I'm telling you, I may have to make one of the parts of these spellcasters just a comedy because, I mean, you think there's CIA operators in the world of music and in movies and TV shows. Everybody knows that. But I think it's highly, highly overlooked how many are in the comic world. Highly overlooked. And highly overlooked how many suspicious deaths that there's been through the years, specifically of comics who, for whatever reason, be it the subject matter or, you know, their inability to be controlled or to do what the mainstream wants them to do, are axed. And, it's always done in ways where, drug overdoses or suicides. And because of that job description and because of, how tough it is, it's just easier for people to accept at face value. Especially when you've got somebody that's, has been on medication or anything else. I kept hoping there was going to be something in this article that might say why people were suspicious of this, because that's what it leads with that in the article. It says, until 2010, Stevens had never exhibited obvious signs of mental illness. The only thing his sister, Stephanie Brody, ever noticed was her younger brother acting hyper. But that year, Stevens had a breakdown. After returning from the Montreal Just for Laughs comedy festival, he partnered up with Zach Galifianakis to do an HBO special called Enjoy It. It later aired as 12 half-hour episodes on Comedy Central about Stevens' life. He strained under the pressures of filming and started behaving irrationally, lashing out at friends and often breaking down in tears in his apartment during the filming. He showed up at a party Silverman threw annually on a West Hollywood rooftop, acting grandiose and unstable. His friends realized something was wrong, but they weren't sure how to handle it. I don't know. It just seems to me like this article is trying to, it just seems like it's trying to sell. It seemed like it baited you in thinking they were going to talk about why his fellow comedians had thought that his death was suspicious. But really, all they've done in this article is reinforce the idea that he was mentally unstable. And again, that's just as suspicious, isn't it? What else we got? Alexa gone bad. Oh, I'm so glad I never got one of those fucking things. I knew that was a trap from the get-go. You won't ever see me have one of those things. I have all that shit turned off on my phone, too. I remember the last time, they did a recent one, but I haven't updated yet. But last time, I don't know if it was can't remember if it was on my phone or on the Mac or whatever, but boy, last time, whatever update they did that I had to do, there was more shit that I had to opt out of than I've ever seen. Because they just don't give a fuck now. They're just going to fucking track you and everything. They hope everybody will just, say okay to it. Not me, Jack. I don't use that Alexa shit. I mean, I put off even having a phone until 2013. I never got one. I resisted until then. I mean, the only reason I have to have one now is because I have to be able to, get around and take Ubers and stuff. So, but there was one time when I had it on, when it first came out or something, I didn't use it. And it started like calling somebody or doing something on its own. I was like, fuck this shit. I'm turning this off. Now that the smart home of the future is finally here, we can shout at AI assistants like Amazon's Alexa to start manipulating our fancy TVs, lamps, and coffee makers. Then shout at them again when, as so often happens, they fail us. I'm not so lazy as to I can't just type in what I'm looking for. I mean, that's really all this shit is. Alexa, look up Smashing Pumpkins or whatever, I can fucking type that in, dude. I don't need to just speak to a goddamn thing and have it look it up for me. That's just, to me, just so lazy. What, dude? You can't... It's too much to ask of you to just type into a search engine what you're looking for now? Come on. That really takes that much time out of your day? It's no wonder sci-fi books and movies often assume robots will turn on humanity. That's essentially what happens in the reboot of the Child's Play horror series, in which the smart yet sinister Chucky doll, reconceived as a walking Alexa-like device, goes in for the kill. Yeah, Mark Hamill does the voice of Chucky, this new one. We've already seen AI assistants misbehave. Take the Amazon Echo that blared "porn detected" when a child asked him to play a song in 2016, or the one that shipped a little girl in Dallas an expensive dollhouse when she asked it to play with her in 2017. Worse, its connected brethren in other houses that heard the story on the news proceeded to do the same. While Chucky's murderous malfunction seems far-fetched, we couldn't help but envision ways our own abused AI assistants might soon rebel. Tired of your verbal vitriol, the Miffed assistant silences your morning alarm in the hope that you will sleep in forever and stop all the shouting. Yeah. Now, Alexa, turn my alarm off. And then Alexa fucking turns off your goddamn life for good. Turns your fucking electric blanket up to fucking broil mode. Just cooks your ass in the bed. Deciding your friend should help sort out your problems instead of it, the assistant innocently posts all your weird Google searches on Twitter. Yes, even that one. What? Man, that's fucked. Yeah, I don't fuck with that. I don't fuck with those. I'm sorry. I can take the extra 10 seconds to fucking type what I'm looking for into a search engine. I just can. I can. I don't need to fucking talk. Alexa or Siri, look up black dildos. I can type black dildos into a fucking search engine myself. Thanks. Overhearing you reminisce about playing doorbell ditch as a kid, the assistant impishly rings your doorbell cam every 6 minutes, all night. Sensing another meltdown, the assistant helpfully purchased all 87 items on your Amazon wish list at once. Who doesn't like presents? Frustrated by traffic? The assistant charts an alternative course, rerouting you until it finds an abandoned drive-in where you can scream alone. Noticing you didn't get much exercise today, the assistant cranks up the pace on your new smart treadmill. Burn those calories. Burn! Yeah, fuck all that shit. And now those fucking Ring doorbells. That was another one I saw coming a mile away. Like, all that shit's wired into the internet and shit's like, man, all they're going to do, it's the same thing they're doing with all this shit. The same thing they did with getting us to all take the phones, they have tracking devices on us. Then they got us to put the Alexa things in there that listen to us and record everything, even into printouts on text 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. I knew those fucking Ring doorbells. I said that, and that's come out now. They're just going to use that as a proprietary surveillance grid, and they have. And even the cops have admitted they're doing it now. So if you resisted the Alexa and the Siri and all that, resist the Ring doorbells too, because they're just using that for people to create all this stuff. They get us to willfully accept it, and then they use it against us. People talked for years and, about the microchips and the mark of the beast and all that stuff. And people have been openly suspicious and scared of that coming in. But I think people didn't realize the same exact thing would come in to our lives by taking on other forms. And it's done that through cell phones, through these smart devices, now through the doorbells. They have cameras on them. I mean, yeah, they had a surveillance grid, and yeah, they set up a surveillance grid for years. But now we're willfully doing it ourselves, and that's the most important thing, is we stop doing this stuff willfully, because now they don't even have to do it to us anymore. We just do it to ourselves. Democratic presidential hopefuls seek black support at Carolina fish fry. Boy, I mean, this is hilarious. A fish fry in South Carolina on Friday drew the largest crowd of Democratic presidential candidates yet, and gave them a chance to gauge support among black voters who will be crucial voting bloc in the early primary state next year. This is hilarious. Okay, you've got all these Democrats who are constantly put themselves out as the purveyors of being anti-racism and for equality and all the rest of this. And God damn it, if every fucking election cycle, the most racist shit that you see comes from these Democrats out stumping on the campaign trail. You've seen those videos or heard those recordings from Hillary Clinton, right? Where she's out in black states and she's talking like she's some plantation, or I don't feel no ways tired. We come too far. She sounds like she's trying to be a black leprechaun or something, like Leprechaun in the Hood. So now Joe Biden's guys, you guys are going to southern states. We're going to have what's fish fry down here. We're going to go down here because that's what people in the South like. We'll get them to vote for us by having this fish. I mean, that's so, it's literally the equivalent of blackface. It's so offensive and racist, yet it's coming from the people who claim that they're anti-racist. But yet, I mean, Hillary Clinton's not the only one. There's been a bunch of them. I think Obama even do it. They go down and say, how y'all doing down here? Start talking with a sub. That's so fake and phony, dude. That's more offensive than anything. I think it's hilarious. These people scream and yell about, call everybody else a racist if they're not a liberal, but then they go out and do, I don't feel no ways tired. I mean, it's just fucking ridiculous. No explanation. Flying objects over Kansas City leave locals suspecting aliens. Well, I've been seeing this for 15 years, and I can tell you exactly what this is by looking at this. Finally, nice to see people are finally paying attention to this. You have probably been seeing this for years, too. And these are the white orbs that you always see near chemtrails, when you see chemtrail planes spraying. And it seems now that people are finally paying attention to this. Man, we've been catching these on camera for years. I talked about this a long time ago. My sister caught one, the craziest one I ever saw. This was like 15 years ago when she took this picture. and it's of a X, a chemtrail X. And the reason they do those X's is because that's where you can see those on radar. And they use that in combination with like X-band radar and different things. But so basically, so they can use HARP and whatnot to target these certain areas to hit the chemtrail waves, which are made up of barium and all this stuff with electromagnetic pulses from HARP and other ionospheric heaters in order to activate what's in the spray. But I've seen them a million times with the naked eye. I mean, I've caught them on camera before, but they're just these strange white orbs that appear to be going in and out of the spray mixture and around. I saw one rotating around a plane one time. KMBC9 in Kansas City said on Twitter it had fielded several calls regarding two strange orbs floating over Kansas City International Airport. I had to notice, is that all they have? And the rest are just Twitter posts. And yeah, they said they weren't weather balloons, they weren't anything like that. Now they're trying to say there's some sort of secret DARPA balloons. These things are not balloons. When you see how fast these things go, how fast they're moving, the rate at which they're moving, and how they always seem to be around chemtrail clouds and planes, that's exactly why I said for years that there's something definitely more, I don't know what the word is. This is not just something that's airplanes flying up and spraying stuff in the atmosphere. That largely doesn't work anyway. There's something more advanced going on with this. I believe the extraterrestrial involvement. One theory is that these are, well, I've seen a lot of stuff that indicates that a lot of these planes that we're seeing aren't really real anyway. They're holograms. I've seen that for myself for about 15 years. Whenever I've taken high resolution cameras and zoomed in on these planes, and the planes seem to, part of them disappear. They morph. A lot of these planes we're seeing aren't even real planes. They're like either some sort of holograms or they're using cloak technology like they have on stealths. There's something bigger going on with this chemtrail stuff that they're trying to keep covered up. Again, one of the theories is that these are, it's being done by humans from the future who've come back in time to try to manipulate the climate now. So in the future, it's, it's not destructed. I don't know. All I can tell you is that this is no joke. The weirdest phenomenon, the weirdest shit that I've ever seen in my life, ladies and gentlemen, has been from monitoring and looking at and taking video and camera stuff of chemtrails. The weirdest stuff. There's something going on with this, and it's not just airplanes spraying stuff in the sky. There's something else going on here. Is CBD bad for your liver? The shocking findings of one new study. This is hilarious propaganda. Cannabinol is the non-psychoactive cannabinoid best known for its perceived medical benefits. It can be extracted from the cannabis plant or from hemp, the latter of which is almost always more cost-effective source to obtain large quantities of CBD extracts. Given that CBD-infused derivatives such as oils, capsules, edibles, infused beverages, and topicals don't get a user high, they're believed to be the perfect means to market to users who've never used or considered using a marijuana or hemp oil product. So now, it's not as safe as you think. We've used it on rats and found that it damages the liver. Oh, I mean, this is just pure propaganda. I mean, this is such horseshit. Look at all these fucking pharmaceutical drugs. This is clearly propaganda paid for by the pharmaceutical industry. Watch these commercials and they tell you, may cause liver failure, death, may cause bleeding from the ass, hemorrhaging from the brain. 18,000 things. How many news stories do they run a week saying that you might get cirrhosis of the liver from drinking alcohol? None, but we know that's a fact. anything, if you drink too much, eat too much cheese, or, there's a billion different things you can do that can cause liver damage. And yeah, if you're doing high levels of CBD, if you're ingesting high levels of anything, whether it be alcohol, Tylenol, anything else that's been perceived as quote unquote safe, it can do damage to the liver. This stuff is the pharmaceutical companies are getting their asses kicked because fewer people are dying. Fewer people are buying their nasty chemical pharmaceuticals. But at the same time, look, I was one of the first people. There's a video, I think, still on YouTube from like 10 years ago. Even before the marijuana legalization was widespread, I was one of the first people, and I took flack for it. And I was one of the first people that said that I felt like marijuana legalization was a trap by Monsanto and other companies. I just heard today that the state of Illinois just legalized recreational marijuana. And, you would think that, hell, Oklahoma, man. I said from the beginning, the last state that'll ever happen is Texas, where I live. That'll be the last state if it ever even happens. They got it in Oklahoma now. But the thing is, you would think all these states being legal would make marijuana in general easier to get or cheaper. It hasn't. In fact, everybody that I've talked to in Dallas, man, it's hard as shit to get in Dallas right now. Everybody I've talked to has problems getting it. Legalization has not made marijuana better or worse. It's made it worse because people are now buying. You can buy fake shit. People are buying these CBD buds that don't have any THC in them. By the way, if you take CBD oil or any of these CBD products and a cop tests it, it will test positive for THC, even though it doesn't have very much in it. So a lot of dealers have figured this out now. You can go on Alibaba.com and shit and buy these fucking CBD buds that don't have any THC in it. People are taking that, they're selling it as real bud with THC in it. People are buying it because it looks, smells. If you test it like the cops do, it shows it has THC. Then people are smoking it and not getting high off of it. I said that 9-10 years ago, man, and people thought I was full of shit. I'm telling you, I saw this coming. I think, people said that the marijuana is better now and it's easier to get. Bullshit. I have not seen that to be the case. To me, it's become harder to get. I said this from the very beginning, that legalization was not the fucking beautiful thing everybody thought it was. It's made it harder to get in some places. It's allowed the proliferation of these CBD buds for people to rip people off. It's terrible, man. In my opinion, the shit was better 10, 20 years ago before it was legalized. And it just opens up a whole other way of people to get ripped off. I don't know, man. Everything has its positive and its negatives, but from somebody that lives in a state where, we don't even have medical here, much less recreational or anything else. They've got dispensaries and shit in Oklahoma now. Where I sit in Dallas, it's an hour from there. You would think we'd be flooded down here with all kinds of crazy, but it's just not that way. They've decriminalized here in Dallas. You can pretty much have, I think, up to a couple of ounces on you at a time here in Dallas. And you don't, if they catch you with it, it's a ticket. You don't even have to, they don't even arrest you anymore for anything under 2 ounces or something. You'd be a fucking ticket. So they've decriminalized it here. But from people I've talked to around Dallas, it's much harder to get real THC bud now than even it was 10 years ago when it was criminalized. And I think I said that 10 years ago, everybody was getting caught up in the legalization stuff and they weren't looking at the negative aspects like some of these states where, I remember Monsanto started growing 10, 12 years ago. They started growing that, the GMO stuff down in Colombia. I remember there was this stuff going around for a while that everybody was calling popcorn or middies. Like it wasn't the like Mexican brickweed swag with the fucking seeds in it. And it wasn't the high end hydroponic stuff, but they called it middies or popcorn. And that shit, that was the GM. It was going around hot about 10 years ago. That was the GMO Monsanto shit coming up from Colombia. I mean, but at least that stuff you smoked, it got high. A lot of people now are passing, especially in non-legal states, they are passing off this CBD buds that passes a sniff test, passes the look test. They'll even pass a police THC test and show that it has THC in it. But when you smoke it, you do not get high, and you smoke a whole fucking quarter ounce trying to get a buzz, and you get nothing out of it. And meanwhile, your $100 or whatever's gone, and people are getting rich off of it. So I personally, I mean, until I see some different results, I think that, so-called decriminalization and so-called legalization has benefited the powers that be more because they're making all this money off taxes now. But it has not made it easier for people to cultivate their own or to get their hands on stuff for medical purposes. It just hasn't. I don't know. Maybe I'm fucking biased because I'm down here in shitty ass Texas, but that's just the way I see it, man. I think it was far. I mean, I know that 10, 15 years ago, you could find way better shit than you can now, way easier. It seems like legalization has made it harder to get stuff. So there you go. As per usual, you have stuff like this. People only, they think it's going to be a utopia and it's going to be so good, but then you start to see the downsides of it. Hell, I read this story about in Canada not Canada, but Oregon. This is insane. Oregon has produced so much legal weed up there, they can't even sell it all. The state had to shut down legal grow ops in the state of Oregon because apparently they have enough to last like 3 years. Oregon is sitting on, here it is. Oregon is sitting on more than 1 million pounds of unsold cannabis, a number that is growing. The oversupply of cannabis is driving down prices, but because the marijuana cannot be transported over state lines, it has nowhere to go, possibly jeopardizing the local industry. This is insane. Oregon is producing more weed than it can sell. The cannabis industry has been a part of the state's identity even before it was legalized. Now Oregonians are sitting on more than 1 million pounds of unsold product. One tub of marijuana costs $20,000 in New York, but costs only $7,000 in Oregon. If the marijuana is just as potent in either state, this weed surplus problem brings up the question of whether Oregon has too much weed or not enough people to consume it. What we have is a market access problem, and it's a political problem. The issue with calling it a weed surplus is that it implies the solution is simply to produce less cannabis. But producing less cannabis, farmers run the risk of losing their livelihoods. I mean, this is insane. They got so much, they can't even get rid of it. If they stop growing all of it right now today, they'd still have enough left to last 3 years. Yet down here in Texas, people are selling fake shit. And it's harder to get real stuff than it was when it was completely illegal. So, I mean, you can't sit here and tell me that things are better now that we have legalized weed in a lot of states. You can't tell me that things are better than they were before it was illegal. Other than the fact that people aren't going to fucking jail for having a seed in their ashtray in their car. Other than that, I just don't see any positive ups from this. I just don't. All right, we're going to leave it there for today, ladies and gentlemen. I'll be back here with you tomorrow for more. Again, I've talked about this YouTube thing that's going on. I mean, they're very well YouTube is, I was reading more about this. YouTube is going after channels now. It's not just truther channels and conspiracy channels and stuff they're going after now. They're going after everybody. And I think the reason it is, I think maybe I had this one more story. Yeah, here it is. FTC investigates YouTube platform could remove all children's videos from its main site and disable autoplay after young users were shown disturbing content. See? The plot thickens now. Now the truth's coming out. Now we know all of a sudden they started cracking down on people because the Federal Trade Commission's coming after them now. So now they're just going after anybody for no reason, even people that haven't violated their terms of service. And it's all because the FTC, the Federal Trade Commission's coming down on them because they fucked up with their autoplay and their suggested shit that was showing content to minors. This was not something that users did or people uploading videos about, conspiracies or whatever did. They're throwing the baby out with the bathwater because, they're passing the buck because the heat's coming down on them. So they're putting the heat down on everybody else. But like I said, I've been broadcasting. I started the show in 2007. If YouTube went away tomorrow, I'll still be here broadcasting. Yeah, it'll be harder for you to find me, but not if you get a subscription. You go to my website, theglobalreality.com. There's a subscribe button on the right-hand side of the page. If you hit that, you can subscribe to my members' archives. It's $10 a month. It's $80 for a year. And the show gets posted there within seconds of it being done. You can ensure that you get all the shows. If they take us off YouTube tomorrow, which could happen, I really feel like our days are probably numbered. They're going to come after a lot more people and probably remove a lot more channels. So again, if you see that my channel's just gone one day and you don't see any of my videos on my channel on YouTube anymore, my channel's just gone, go to theglobalreality.com, hit that subscribe button, get a subscription, do it now, and then you don't have to worry about it. I've left the lifetime memberships that we usually sell for $500. They are on sale and going to be on sale until Monday for $300. So get yourself one of those. It's another way to support our work. And also hit the download shop. Get downloads of all my films. Check out we've got the full collection box set in there now, $175 for all my work, all the audiobooks, all the films, all the presentations, everything. You're saving about $160 or so by buying that package. We also have a package of all my previous films, The Secret Right, Volume 1 and 2, Lost Secrets of Ancient America, Volume 1 and 2, The Spellcasters, Volume 1 and 1.5, all the audiobooks. And again, this is just the most important time. I'm coming down close to getting Spellcasters 2 and 3 done. And I explained the goals at the beginning of the show, and that's where we're at. So we need all your help. We need all the soldiers to step up and do this now so we can fend off any of this shit they're going to try to throw at us in the coming days and months. I love you guys so very much. We'll see you back here tomorrow. Take care.